Right, hello everybody. So I'm going to give you a bit of a walkthrough today of a new Miroverse template that I'm putting out that's all about making it easier for Scrum teams and particularly for Scrum Masters to help get people started on the right foot with work visualization without needing to resort to really complex workflow management tools that I won't name specifically. So here on the screen, you can see this template that is available on the Miroverse, simply called the Ultimate Scrum Template. And it starts very simply on the left with Backlog Refinement. And you might know that Backlog Refinement is a very important part of Scrum, but it's not a fixed or time-boxed event. So this is deliberately put at the very beginning to remind teams that this is something they should be thinking about regularly as often as is needed. And as you can see that the flow of this template is to go through the events in order that make up a sprint until eventually you will return back to the beginning and repeat the cycle. But it starts with backlog refinement, where, of course, it points to the product backlog, which is in here as a usable and movable product backlog that can be reordered, as well as color-coded if you want to allow different backlog types. So here you can see I've got features and defects, but of course you can change these and they can be anything that you want them to be. You can add new types, you can color code them. And the reason we start, of course, with backlog refinement is because we want to make sure that this product backlog is properly ordered to enable us to be successful in sprint planning. But the other thing you'll notice here is the product goal, a very important part of the product backlog that is often overlooked. And here teams would be expected to define and visualize, make transparent their product goal to help inform the ordering and the content of that product backlog. Now, once the team has done enough backlog refinement, when it's ready to start a new sprint, we of course get to sprint planning. Sprint planning obviously is where we will decide on the work that we want to do for the sprint that is aimed at achieving a particular goal, which is why the very first part of this frame, you can see the what, the why, the what, and the how, which give us our 3 steps of sprint planning, starting with creating our potential sprint goal, where we would, of course, be able to put in a blank sticky note and start brainstorming ideas, probably with a lot of input from our product owner on what the value of the upcoming sprint should be. Once we've done that, we can then pull backlog items in from the product backlog to enable that goal. And finally, the how. This is where we would create our tasks, so our particular things that we need to do that maybe don't matter from a customer perspective, but there are important things that we need to complete in order to achieve our goal and to mark those product backlog items as complete. You'll notice a reminder here that says, be sure to add these to your PBIs, because if we open and expand our PBIs, you can see the ability here to add tasks that can be ticked off so that we don't forget the things that we've agreed to in sprint planning as we work through the sprint. Again, all of these can be fully customized however matches your team's workflow, but it acts as a starting point to get you going. So obviously, once we've done sprint planning, the next thing we're going to care about is our daily scrum, which we'll be doing every day throughout the sprint. And here, of course, it reminds us that the focus is the sprint goal. And helpful questions that you can see above here. What do we need to do today to achieve our goal is a question that you might be asking at your daily scrum. Now, the sprint backlog is here and visible for us to manage day to day. So here, of course, our sprint backlog items that we have decided to pull through will be listed in the sprint backlog. Of course, they can be prioritized here if that's how a team prefers to work, or we can simply limit work in progress by pulling one thing in at a time, working on it as a team, and then, of course, eventually marking it as done, where, again, you'll see a nice placeholder for your team's definition of done, which you should be creating your own based on what you have learned from building your product. Again, you can expand these tickets, add extra details, add assignees, and of course, add more information that the team needs. I should note that this is just a general Kanban template from Miro. I didn't create this. This is just slotted in to this template because it's a useful way to visualize the work. As always, you'll go through this every day, marking things as done when they meet the definition of done until, of course, you get to your sprint review, which is our chance to demonstrate our done work and get feedback for the upcoming sprint. And you'll notice the first thing that we've got here is an empty box that actually allows us to drag our sprint goal from here so that we can make it nice and visible and transparent during the sprint review. And of course, use our little counters here to say whether our sprint goal was achieved or perhaps was not achieved and why, making, again, that very transparent so that we can get appropriate feedback. Now, given most teams are going to want to demonstrate the individual product backlog items that they created, here is where you can drag your done items into this reviewed column as we go through kind of marking off the things that we have demonstrated to our customers to get feedback. And there is a nice blank space here where you can, of course, get feedback from those customers, from the stakeholders, and put it here so that we don't forget things. And there is a dotted line you'll note that goes all the way back to the product backlog to remind us that any feedback that we get during the sprint review should be used to adapt and improve the product backlog, its ordering, and the things that are in it. Another little placeholder you might notice here that is very useful is the potential sprint goal. So once again, this allows us to create a new sprint goal sticky so that in the sprint review, we could potentially talk to our stakeholders about what our goal is for the next sprint and get feedback on whether that is the right thing to be working on. And of course, we won't commit to it yet, but this acts as a fantastic input again into our next sprint planning session. Finally, the next section is our sprint retrospective, where of course we've got a nice retro template, not one that I've created, just one that I've dropped in here from Miro's templates to remind us to reflect on how the last sprint went and what we intend to do differently in future sprints. Now, of course, again, that takes us all the way back to our product backlog, where potential items that we have captured in our retrospective, things that we want to improve, they might go in our product backlog or potentially straight into our sprint backlog, depending on how our team works. But of course, we do need to make sure that we are making adaptations based on that retrospective. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. So that's it. That gives you just a really nice, simple visual workflow that you can use with your team to capture and make your work transparent. It allows you to avoid all the really complex and sometimes misleading practices that are baked into some of the bigger or more common workflow management tools. And of course, the most important thing here is that this is entirely customizable, so you can adjust this based on how your team is working and the things that you learn, but it gives you a great jumping off point if you are not sure how to get started. Hope that's useful, and as always, if you have any questions about this, please reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn most of the time. Thanks.